Mess. I gotta clean this place up. Alright, that's looking a little bit better. Still need to take these out of the sea can. At least I can see some space here again. I need some light. That's light. Okay, this kind of feels weird talking to the camera. So, obviously I haven't been doing a lot of YouTube lately. That's just because I've been so busy with knives, and then also this spring has kind of turned itself into an amazing summer already. I mean, the weather's just phenomenal. We need moisture, things are dry, but we've been having a blast. You know, tons of bike rides as a family, lots of barbecue, and then also knives, like tons of knives. And I've got 3 knives left and I'm completely caught up on all my orders, which feels really, really good because I've just been like head down, bum up, getting knives done here in the shop. Obviously that meant that I didn't have enough time to do any YouTube. Hopefully that is going to change. Now, one thing I did work on last week is that I made a stand for my portable bandsaw so that I could reclaim my horizontal belt grinder. And you know what, while I was doing that, I thought, at the very least, I could probably just throw the camera and shoot some footage. So this is basically that video. This is just me taking the stand that was for my lathe and repurposing that. I found a really, really interesting discovery along the way. You'll see that in the video. But I basically got my portable bandsaw on its own stand with wheels now, and I'll just kind of show you real quickly how I did that. And then I've got my horizontal grinder back, which is awesome.
Alright, so some of you may remember this stand. This was for my lathe, and really all I'm doing is taking out that center section. So I just kind of, remove the shelves from in there, mark out some nice straight lines, and cut it basically into 3 pieces, and then I'll join the back, the outside pieces, the legs together. But I noticed the paper inside the tubing while I was cutting.
Alright, this is the coolest thing. This was inside of that stand. Built by Jim Early, December 16, 2004, Drumheller, Alberta, for my new lathe. That is so cool. He left this paper in there so that we would always know. That is insane. I'm gonna keep this, I'm gonna put this on my wall. This guy was proud of what he did.
Alright, so we just continue with the build, and yeah, just kind of dressing everything up here, getting it ready to weld. And then we'll bring those pieces into the garage because I did want to weld it on a nice flat level surface. Couldn't find anything decent outside, so I brought it in here. And then I'm just using some square tubing to hold it together, square tubing and Bessie clamps, and that's kind of, after I took my measurements and stuff, I just used those to hold everything together, get everything nice and flat, and then ready to weld. Kind of tack everything at first and put enough tacks on there so that as I lay my bigger beads, that heat doesn't warp the whole frame. And then I added a few gusset supports here just to keep those legs from spreading. This is all just scrap steel. 100% is scrap. I was actually going to throw this lathe stand out, and I thought I was keeping it, and I was just getting ready to load it up, and I was like, wait a minute, this might work. And I hate to have stuff laying around. When you got some land, or even just in your garage, it's easy to hold on to stuff and have a big old junk pile. And so I was really quite intent on, if I can't find a use for this stand, I better toss it. And I'm pretty glad that I did find this way to repurpose it. and I'm not entirely sure what's going on with my welder, but it is, right now it's very temperamental and it's driving me insane. Having a heck of a time getting it to work. When I go over to it and I look at the spool feeder and that little wheel that pulls it through, it acts fine. Maybe I need a new lining for my little whip there or something, I'm not sure, but this was causing a bit of an issue. I still need to look at that and get it figured out. And then the next part of this process was just to take that little arm off of the stand, and that is the stand that was my horizontal belt grinder. I've got a video on kind of how I made this little attachment, and originally I had this welded to the wall of my shipping container shop. And then once I converted my KMG, I thought I didn't need my horizontal grinder anymore, so I thought, I'm just going to weld this little portable bandsaw stand to that. And then now I'm coming full circle again, chopping it off and converting back to my horizontal grinder. We're getting useful again. Just going to lay out roughly where I wanted it to go so that the saw would be centered on that stand. And so I had to weld it a little bit off-centered from the base there, just because the way the stand hangs, or the saw is kind of a little off-centered. But grind off those welds on the belt grinder, get it positioned, and then we'll tack that sucker on there. And then weld it all up. Now, I don't profess to be a good welder at all, but it's a utilitarian thing for me. I weld so that I can make stuff, so I can fasten two things together, but by all means do not watch what I do and think that, hey, that's the right way to do it, because I barely know enough to be dangerous with it, but it works for what I need it to do. Nice welds. Probably not. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so here it is all finished, and it's pretty crude. Actually, this frame, you see how out of level it is. When I was cutting it all apart, it was like springing. There's a lot of tension in the frame, and so something was off. But what I thought was more important is to keep all legs nice and level so there wasn't any rocking. And in order for that to happen without taking the whole thing apart, I had to weld this side out of level, but whatever. I was thinking about maybe putting a work surface on here. I still might, but I kind of want to avoid it right now because a lot of times that just ends up being a great place for stuff to gather. So I'm gonna leave it right like this. I'll be able to drop my cord in here. And the one thing, I'll have to use it and see what I think, but I'm thinking I'll put my foot pedal right in there and it should wedge right in here. If it's not working out well, if it's out too far, I'll cut this up. I'll weld the brace a little bit higher, but I think this should be it for now. And that's kind of nice because it can wheel around. And then I've got a video on what I've done to this. So this is just a quick release plate for, this was actually just a shooting target. So it just clamps on, no modifications to the portable band whatsoever. Clamp that in place, you have a little work surface. And then same thing with the stand. Really, I've got a whole video on when I built this. You can check that out. Use a piece of Velcro on the trigger because obviously I use the foot pedal. And then this thing just pops out and in like this. And there's no fasteners, no bolting or anything. It works solid. I've been using it in this configuration probably over a year now. I've got a little tab on this side as well as a little tab on this side. And that just keeps this from wiggling back and forth. Got a nice snug fit there. And then like I say, I machined a couple slots into these pieces of tubing, welded them up like this, and then this slides in and out, and I didn't have to do any modification to my portable bandsaw. I really like that because when I'm going to work outside or something, if I want to take this with me, and I was actually thinking, why on earth didn't I use this to cut this apart? I was halfway through cutting with the grinding discs and I thought, what am I doing? I'm making a stand for my portable bandsaw, which means I have a portable bandsaw. I probably should have just used that, but this is done. Now we can get on to
the next part, the big reason I wanted to do that was so that I could bring back my horizontal grinder. So I'm going to reassemble this thing. I still have all the parts. I just need to bolt it all back together because I really like having a dedicated horizontal grinder. It's just so often, it's so much easier than switching out between that and this. And if I have it here, you know, I thought I would try it with just this because it's on a VFD now. I can run my small wheels. And it works great, but just with, you know, if I can go from this right to doing detail work, finger choils and stuff, and leave this set up, it's so much nicer. And so I'm really missing having this. So now the next part of our little project for today is to get this thing back up and running. All right, so after all of that monkeying around, I do believe our problem is a bent shaft. I think this shaft right here is bent because this thing has never ran as bad as it is right now. I might just put a dial indicator in there, but yeah, this thing's just wobbling like crazy. Now I do have some extra 3/4 inch shafting, and then what I'm thinking of doing, this is the wheel that I had bought for this, but this is the wheel off my KMG, the one that the original one. I've changed that out to a bigger one since I went direct drive. But I think I'm actually going to swap this out because this will make the belt run even slower. That's one thing with these small wheels, that they need to run really nice and slow. Just their RPMs are so high because they're so tiny. So if I swap this out, I might end up having to move my adjustment hole over one, which I've already done. That's no big deal, just so, to make sure I can get proper tension. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut a new 3/4 inch shaft. I'll mount this wheel on it. It'll slow everything down even more, which will be great. And then, yeah, see if that fixes that problem. You see how much is wobbling there. So I think that's what I need to do. All right, so I'm going to call this good enough for now. One thing I would like to do is I had a table here originally so that I could use this as a flat platen. And then I had, well, let me just, where did it go? Oh, yeah, it's under here. So this was the table that I had on there. And so this was up against the belt. And this was exactly 45, so that if I wanted to make like really quick 45s on stuff, I could rest my workpiece on here, move it up. And it was really good. But what I want to do is I want to make it so that it will actually articulate this way too. So I'm going to leave it off for now. I've still got this if I ever need to, you know, grind just a flat part of the scales or something like that. This is a handy surface to have. But I would like to make that table tilt a little bit so I can put chamfers on scales and stuff like that. But we did swap out the drive wheel. And then we moved our pivot point right to there. So obviously compensating for the difference in the smaller wheel. Works pretty good, and I still need to get the proper switch here. I need to go to town, pick that up, but it's running quite a bit smoother now. Still a little bit of wobble in there that I don't like too much, but it's smooth enough that grinding isn't affected. Like it grinds nice and smooth. That's hot. So that's good. This is what I wanted. And you know, most of the time I'll leave it set up with an 80 grit aluminum oxide. It works great for just roughing out, you know, finger grooves and stuff, kydex work, all kinds of stuff. I just love having this thing set up. Obviously when I'm getting to finishing, I'll match other belts and other finishes, but most of the time I'll just leave one of these belts in here all the time. And it doesn't matter what material I'm using, I just throw it on there, and super, super handy. So it's gonna be nice not to have to be switching out that all the time. The one thing I am thinking is that I had modified this for grinding fullers into my blades, and I think I'm gonna actually buy another small wheel holder so that I can still use a small wheel in there, but use it horizontally for grinding in fullers. I mean, I've got all the small wheels and stuff, I don't think another one of these might be, what, 80 bucks, something like that. And I've already got the tooling arm made for one, so I think that will be well worthwhile. So the next part of this whole thing, kind of get this scooted into position. I got the portable bandsaw put over there, get everything hooked up, and this area here will be a lot more functional just by adding the one additional tool. I'm really excited about that. So it's really easy to spend all your time making stuff for your shop rather than making stuff in your shop. So I need to try to avoid that. I mean, I've got some knives I need to get done, some other projects I want to build, and so you can't spend too long like updating your shop and upgrading everything, because literally I could work for 3 months straight just upgrading things, making things better, making new benches, making all kinds of stuff. But we really just kind of need to put this aside for a bit and then get back to work. All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, you know what? There hasn't been a lot of content coming out, but that's okay. I've been super busy and I've been having a blast. Things are just, things are really great right now. I hope you guys are doing really well. And then hopefully soon we'll get some more videos out here. I'm caught up and we'll just keep rocking and rolling. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Cheers.